Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to welcome you to our free webinar, Stress Management in Children Promotes Good Mental Health, What Parents Need to Know, jointly organized by Nuffield Counselling and Nuffield Academy. Tonight, we have the privilege of having our esteemed guest speaker, Zahira Musclewood, to share her wisdom and insights on this topic. Zahira is the principal counselor with Nuffield Counselling. She works with adults, adolescents, couples, and families on a broad range of mental health conditions such as stress, anxiety, depression, and bipolar disorder. And without further ado, Zahira, please.
Hi, a very good evening to everyone. Thank you for joining us here today again in one of our other series, which is our series for stress management in children and teens promote good mental health. Okay, so this webinar is especially for parents and caregivers who have young children at home or just dealing with your own teenagers. Okay, so without further ado, let's begin our webinar. So just like all of us, right? Kids and teens do feel stress at times. Okay, so stress is just a normal response to changes and challenges, and life is full of those. Okay, even during childhood, we do go through those kind of stress. We tend to think stress as a bad thing caused by bad events, but upcoming good events such as new activities, holidays, or graduations can also cause stress. Kids and teens feel stressed when there's something they need to prepare for, adapt to, or guard against an issue or problem that's going on in school, or something that's a matter of which is at stake for them. Okay, so some of the other things such as change also prompts stress, even though if it's change for the better. Unfortunately, stress has taken a spin over the past 2 years with new set of challenges for our teens and our children. Don't get me wrong, every stress has a purpose. It is a signal to get ready for potential threats, and it enables our children to focus their attention on resolving the threats. In most cases, children process stress by using fight, flight, or freeze mode. Okay, so moving on to the next slide. What is stress? Okay, stress is, everyone has a different way of dealing with stress. As you can see in this slide here, stress response in children and teens, where it's showing the brain of a developing child or a teenager. Okay, so the body alarm system is all located in the brain, okay? So the amygdala is a part of a limbic system, which is designed to recognize danger and prepare our body to react to it. When it's working properly, it should send signals only when it's in a real danger is present. As you can see, there's this part called the hippocampus, the center of the short-term memory, which is linked the fear response to something that is threatening that is taking place. Okay, so these two brain structures also play an important role in the release of the stress hormones such as cortisol and adrenaline, influencing the capacity for the prefrontal cortex for regulating the thought process, emotions, and actions, as well as keeping information readily accessible during active learning for your children. So in response to overwhelming stress in young children especially, the brain goes into a fight or flight response and release stress hormones. The young children has a limited capacity to manage this overwhelming stress and experience increased arousal, whether it's fear, anxiety, it could be physical or emotional sensations in the body. Okay, so excessive fear and anxiety and cortisol production can affect the capacity for stress regulation as well as development and higher functions of the brain. And significant early adversity or problems such as prenatal stress in mothers or early childhood traumas can also lead to lifelong problems for both physical and mental health. For some of our kids and our teens, when the system is faulty, can trigger false alarms, sending them into a full-blown fight, flight, or freeze mode weekly. Some of the some of the things that they might experience might look like kicking when they're in their fight flight mode. It might look like kicking, screaming, spitting, pushing. Have you ever experienced this? Right? You see, when your child is going through those moments, they are actually in a stress mode. So flight mode can also look like restlessness or excessive fidgeting, where you can experience them moving here and there, just moving up and down the room or running around in the living space. They're just doing anything to get away from their stress response. Okay, and freeze mode can look like, your child is holding their breath or clenching their fists, just shutting down from anything that you're telling them to do. Okay, it's a one of the other things that I do notice a lot is that when a child whines, okay, whining is a part of a stress response, when they are emotionally dysregulated. So, okay, moving on to the next slide, the top reasons for stress in children and teens in Singapore. So according to the Straits Times, I plugged this up from the Straits Times. So according to the Straits Times, which is published on the 31st of July, 2021, expectations to perform well in school are a very known source of stress for the young people here in Singapore, given that, there's a lot of challenges in school and the demands from performing and getting the academic scores. Most of our teens do feel that pressure. Even our children are feeling that pressure. So students also admit that social media often breeds fear of missing out and makes them feel isolated when they're not up to date or not included, or not just interacting with friends who are on the social media platform. They get anxious looking at people who are having fun while they are cooped up studying at home. So that makes them feel like fun things to do. So and posting pictures on social media, it makes them feel really, really frustrated. Okay, so social media does add a new level of stress, which makes it even way more unhealthy in the long run. This is when lastly, this is when, parental pressure kicks in, and with the expectations on their grades, as well as, with whatever is going on, there's a lot more conflicts at home. This can add on stress to our children and teens. Okay, so the next slide will show you how we can identify signs of stress in children and teens. Okay, so an unhealthy response to stress occurs when the demands of the stress exceed their coping ability. Often stress results from something that is beyond their control. So the two most frequent indicators that children are stressed are, you can see their irritation and the changes of behavior, or they could regress to the behaviors of childlike symptoms when they were much younger. They don't usually have words to describe how they are feeling, and sometimes tension bubbles over into a bad mood. Okay, so stressed out kids and teens might be more short-tempered and argumentative than normal. With teens, this reaction might look like, our teenagers just being disrespectful towards their parents, or acting out or participating in risky behaviors such as being showing feelings of sadness, or just not interacting with the family, or just withdrawal totally. These can lead to anxiety and depression as well. Children under stress change their behavior and react by doing things that are not keeping with their usual style. Behaviors seen in the earlier phases of development, such as wetting the bed or thumb sucking, may reappear again. Some other examples were suddenly, things such as suddenly acting out, once active teen who's always, going for, doing physical activities and now doesn't even want to leave the house. Okay, so sudden changes can be a sign of stress levels which are, peaking. Okay, one of the other signs I really notice is that they do have trouble sleeping. A child or a teen might complain of feeling tired all the time, sleeping more than usual, or maybe have trouble sleeping at night. So they might stay up 3 to 4 a.m., just being on their media, on social media and things like that. Okay, one of the other things I noticed as well, they kind of disconnect and neglect their responsibility. So, if your teen suddenly drops the ball on homework or forget obligations and start procrastinating more than usual, it shows a lack of motivation. Might be another stress factor. Okay, some might show that they are eating too much or eating too little, is also another indicator. Lastly, you might notice that your child may fall sick more often, and they might show physical symptoms in the stress occurring at that point of time. So children who feel more stress often report of things such as headaches, stomach aches, and might make frequent trips to the toilet, and they just kept complaining about stomach pains over and over again. Okay, so these are the developmental normal response to stress. Okay, so I'm gonna categorize it for you over here. For preschoolers, usually you might notice that they lack of self-control and they have limited understanding of time. They might just want to act independently or are curious, and like what I mentioned earlier on, they might wet the bed and have changes in eating habits. I'm just going through different categories so you might understand it further. Okay, so preschoolers under stress act differently. Some behaviors might include uncontrollable crying, trembling with fright, or eating or sleeping problems. Toddlers may regress to childlike infant behaviors like what I mentioned earlier. So for elementary age children, typical elementary age children may show signs of whining. They might complain about how they don't like this or they don't like doing certain things. When things are not going their way. So they might also be quite aggressive sometimes and question adults, why do they have to do this or why do they have to do that, or complain about school. Okay, so reactions to distress may include withdrawal or feelings of being unloved, being distrustful, feeling unwell, and lack of interest in excessive disinterest in attending school. You might also, notice that some of the preschoolers, they might end up getting involved in a little, fight with their friends or ignoring their friends. And they have difficulty in naming what they are actually going through at that point of time. So for preteens or teens, they are typically rebellious and they have a lot of like growing pains, such as pain in the leg or skin problems, and have sleep disturbances. And they might just shut down completely and go and isolate themselves in their bedroom, or some might show signs of just being irresponsible. So when under distress, they might feel a lot more angrier, and this might go quite long in that sense. They feel disillusioned and feel lack of self-esteem, as well as they start developing trust issues with adults. I see this quite commonly in my clinic when teens don't really want to open up to their parents and felt like they can't trust them in that sense. Okay, sometimes they show extreme behaviors. Okay, and one of the other things that they might do is rebel, behavior. So these are some of the responses that our kids go through. So here's another slide explaining stress and mental health. Stress and mental health, although I know some stress are okay, too much stress can be overwhelming and it can interfere with sleep, thinking, and learning. And it can get in the way of your child enjoying their life truly. So when your child has too much stress for a long period of time, this can be bad for your child's physical and mental health, because this can lead to anxiety, impulse control, mood disorders, anxiety disorders, depression, which can sometimes look like bad behaviors, just bad behaviors, in children. So in reality, those behaviors are just communication that the child is experiencing stress. Okay, so as you can see, this slide shows that tips for managing stress in children. Okay. So there are ways that you can help your child. The first step in helping them out of their fight, flight, or freeze response is to recognize the signs that as quickly as possible. So, your child can too learn to identify them. It is important to note that children who live in supportive environments often develop a range of coping strategies. So mommy, daddies, and caregivers out there, please be mindful when you're dealing with your teenagers or your children who are experiencing stress. Okay, so one of the first and most important thing I would say is that ensure that your child feels safe. Your priority is to ensure that they have a calm, safe, and secure space to come home to. Tell your child that despite what may be going on in their world, your home is a safe space. And ask your child to share if they have any fears that they might have. But do not force them to do not force them to, get a response for yourself. Okay. If your child will not share their fears with you, ask them who they feel comfortable in sharing these, emotions, and ensure that that person is available to your child. Okay. So the second one would be put your household on a media detox or media diet. I think a lot of you are kind of aware about, how we should limit technologies usage at home. But I think it's really important to keep negative news viewing to a minimum and try to catch up on news during adult time only. Okay, for parents, children do not process stressful news like COVID and the new virus that just came up recently, the monkeypox. They do not process all this information like we do. So it is okay and healthy for children to understand that the world they live in has indeed changed, but they need to feel safe. So a constant stream of negative news can be harsh to your youngsters' mental health. So try to limit all these kind of news from your children to make them feel safe. Okay, the other one I would say is talk to your child, communicate to your child in a supportive, empathetic manner, meaning that use a lot of statements such as I understand. It must be hard for them to be going through what they're going through. Be a bit more empathetic in responding to them. Ask your child how they're feeling. Choose wording that is closer to your child, to what your child may be perceiving. They may not know that they are feeling stressed or depressed, but they may know that they're feeling confused, sad, or scared. Remember to use a lot of patience when you're communicating with your child. Give your child time to express themselves and leave the opportunity to open to your child to talk to you when they are ready. Okay, this will boost your child's sense of security, which wards off stress and anxiety. Okay, so the next one would be practice methods of relaxation with your child. Somewhere along this webinar, I'll be teaching you mindful breathing. which you can practice with your children. Okay, so not only when your child feels stressed, you can use these techniques, but it's also a fun techniques just to break away from everything. So one of the things that I encourage parents to do is to sit outdoors with your child and have your child close their eyes and name everything that they hear or feel, and they might feel the warmth of the sunshine or the breeze or the drop of the rain. They might hear the birds chirping, the honking from the car, the vehicles outside, or the children playing in the park. This gets your child out of the house and into a different setting and helps them to feel a bit more grounded. So parents to do is to learn mindfulness techniques, which I will further explain in this webinar. Okay, the other thing that I do tell parents to do is to avoid overscheduling. Routine is good, but I feel when you overschedule things, it may cause unnecessary stress in children. So ensure that it's time each day for your child to relax and enjoy idle time, just not doing anything and having to do things that are fun for them. So encourage playtime. Younger children are particularly good at brushing off the world and going into playtime. But a stressed child might feel less inclined to do so. So when your children freely dip into imagination, using their imaginative side of the brain, it helps them in their overall development. Ensure your child partakes in physical exercise, whether, with you going out for a slow run or a walk or just going bicycling, which is critical to their well-being. Consider fun exercise such as, riding or just something fun outside, might encourage them to handle their stress response better. Okay, so of course, I think we hear these a lot for ourselves and for our children. Make priority. Healthy sleep patterns encourage mental and physical well-being. Okay, so ensure that your child keeps to regular daily routine, including sleeping and napping and waking up times. For our teenagers, maybe help them to limit their screen time so that they can make sleep a priority. Okay, so the next one will be teach your child that they do not have to be perfect. We are all imperfect beings, okay? We all make mistakes. Mistakes are a part of our learning process in life. Help your child understand how to do their best, but to realize that they are their best, and by being who they are, they can start focusing on things that are matter to them or values that are matter to them, and they are living their best life. Okay, teach your child that it is okay to be different. It is okay not to be okay. It is good to be different, and trying to be like someone else may increase unhealthy behaviors and causes stress. Okay, always give them that reminder, because social media adds on to that stress. Another one would be boost calm in your children by providing them with toys or activities, as this can deter anxiety and stress. So you can do your own activities at home, whether doing puzzle or craft with your child. It encourages their creativity on the other side. And it can help them to break away or disconnect from the stress that they're going through. And lastly, this is the most important thing, is that parents and caregivers, your calmness matters. When you are stressed, your child becomes stressed. It catches on. If you feel pushed to your limits while you're trying to keep up with the pace or the stresses of daily life, your child senses that too and will absorb the same energy as you do. So be mindful that your calmness matters the most. Okay, so the stress management for preteens or teenagers, I would say, acknowledge their stress. If you notice that they're going through stress, let them know that you noticed it and you are there to support them. Okay, it's very minimal, but having empathetic statements and patience and being understanding is really crucial to our teenagers, because that is what they need the most from us. Okay, so let's move on. How parents play a big role to stress management. Yes, parents and caregivers have an important role to play by adopting their own healthy habits and helping children and teens find stress managing strategies. Some ways parents can take action is that you can help your child develop coping skills, and you can make changes in your home to relieve some of your child's stress. Okay, so help them feel safe, loved, and cared for, and teach coping skills. Kids feel better when they know that there are things that they can do for themselves to offset the stress. Okay, help them take a break from stress, make playtime, draw, paint, spend time in nature, read a book, or play an instrument, or just being around with family and friends. These activities can induce a lot of stress relief hormones in your body. Okay, so the other thing, like what I mentioned earlier on, parents and caregivers, please talk to children about how to cope with you can model your own healthy coping mechanism on how you deal with stress. So maybe share one or two things that help you release some of your stress factors in life, and how you have overcome with a stressful situation in your life. Okay, the next one I would say is let the kids be their own problem solvers. It is natural to want to fix your child's problem, but when parents jump into every little things that your child is going through, they don't have the chance to learn healthy coping skills. So let your children try to solve their small problems on their own. This way they will gain confidence and they can deal with their own stress and setbacks in life. Okay, the other one would be promote media literacy. Today's kids spend a lot of time online where they can run into all sort of questionable content, cyberbullying or peer pressures from social media. So parents can help by teaching their children to be conscious and mindful when online, and teach them what is okay and what is not okay. And also by limiting the screen time. Say, for example, if your child spends 3 hours on screen, limit them to a reasonable amount so that you can negotiate with your child on this. Okay, and lastly, parents, combat negative thinking in your children. Children usually say things like, I'm terrible at this, or I don't like this about myself, or I'm not good enough. Children and teens can easily fall into this trap of negative thinking. When children use negative self-talk, they just don't disagree. That whenever you say, no, you're good at this, but they keep saying they disagree to whatever you say, ask them what they really think about and whether what they say is true. So for example, you can give examples such as if they had done something good previously, you can give examples to them on that, and make a comparison of it and what makes them think that they're not good at what they're doing right now. So learning to frame things positively will help them develop resilience to stress. Okay, so moving on to the next slide, I'll be introducing this mindfulness for stress relief. I think we are experiencing a little bit of technical difficulty today, so I won't be able to share the video with you, but one of the things that I find that is really helpful for students that I see in my clinic, usually when they are really overwhelmed with and flooded with a lot of emotions that they're going through, I will sit in a space and look at them in the eye and tell them that they are in a safe space. And the first thing that I would encourage them to do is to break away from all those thinking and focus on something that is in the room, that they would like to focus on, whether looking at me or looking at an object that is in the room. I would tell them to take a deep breath at the count of 4. Okay, hold it for the count of 7 and release it at the count of 8. So it might look like this. You breathe in to the count of 4 and hold it to the count of 7 and release to the count of 8. So you can actually repeat this 4 to 5 times until your child calms down. And that's where you can, engage them in a conversation and check in with them. What is it like for them? What makes them feel what they were feeling at that point of time? I feel like it's really important to use these deep breathing strategies, as it has already been proven by a lot of psychologists and doctors that breathing is an effective technique for lowering anxiety and improving moods. Okay, you can actually look on YouTube for some breathing techniques such as the pranayama techniques, or just mindful breathing, and you can follow these exercises. If you would like some links, please don't hesitate to email me and I can actually provide you with those links. Okay, so I'll be holding to a mindfulness workshop for children during the June holidays. Parents who are keen or interested in for their children to join this mindfulness workshop, where I'll be discussing on different techniques to calm down anxiety and moods. I'll be teaching them a lot more on some of these breathing techniques, and just grounding techniques, and a lot more. Usually I do these in the whole span of 30 days, but my workshop is a span of 3 days. So parents who would like to sign up for their children, please feel free to contact me. They're also welcome to sit in these workshops with their children so that they can learn some of these techniques to help them through stressful situations. Okay, so we have come to the end of the webinar. I am now opening, the floor to any questions and answers segment, so that, some parents or whoever who's joined us today who would like to know more about, what was discussed today, please feel free to drop your messages or your question in the chat box below. Okay. Is there any questions that anyone would like to ask me? You can type, if you don't feel comfortable in coming online, you can type your questions on the chat box below. Okay, if there's no questions, maybe one of the things that I would encourage parents, before we go, I would encourage parents and caregivers to do is that when children are going through stress, it's good for you to first engage them in activities that disconnect them from the behavior. When you see the behaviors or the symptoms that they're going through, it's good to just disconnect them from that. Just try to bring them out for a walk, or try to disconnect them and do something, an activity or something that just disengage them from the real present stressful issue. Okay, that's the most important thing, to regulate their emotions better. One of the other things that I feel like, if you do notice your child is going through a really prolonged period of stress and is not coping well, it's always important for parents or caregivers to get in touch with a mental health professional, whether it's me or someone that you're comfortable with. Get in touch with them so that you can have your child get professional help in that sense. Early stages of intervention is crucial when it comes to mental health. Okay, so that no other disorders develop out of these symptoms that you see. And lastly, I would say that for parents and caregivers, in order for you to manage these stressors in your child's life, it's also important for you to start looking in and looking at what and how you can handle your own stress, because sometimes, without realizing, as parents and caregivers, we tend to overlook things and we tend to act out without realizing that our children do watch and mimic what we do. So it's very good for us to be mindful on how we project ourselves in the household environment. So I encourage all parents and caregivers to always be mindful of these things. Okay. Is there any questions that that anyone would like to ask me before we go? Okay, so thank you all for joining me here today again in our webinar. Please do not hesitate and get in touch with me if you have any questions at all on your child, on how to manage certain, dysregulations that's going on at home. I'll be more than happy to answer those questions on my email. Thank you. Till next time, join us again on our webinar.